going to be big disappointment in travel, tourism and other sectors of South Africa's economy on the news that South Africa, it seems, is going to remain on the United Kingdom's red list of countries. The country revised the list today, removing 8 countries, including Egypt and Kenya. Despite hope, South Africa did not make the cut. In recent weeks, International Relations and Cooperation Minister Naledi Pandor has held talks with her UK counterpart to try and get South Africa off the red list. Now, the travel ban has significantly impacted trade and tourism between South Africa and the UK. And for more on this, I'm joined by UK correspondent Olly Barratt. Good evening, Olly. This is really such disappointing news here in South Africa. Tell us what you know about the decision and how it was made.
Well, I wish I could give you some immediate detail by way of an explanation from the British government, but actually what we've seen throughout this crisis is that for the most part the UK government hasn't gone on the record in great detail about individual decisions about individual countries. What I can tell you are some of the factors that go into these decisions. It's things like the presence of variants in particular countries. It's the prevalence, of course, of COVID-19 at the moment. It's the trust that the UK government has in data from those countries. It's sometimes even whether it's worried about COVID-19 in neighbouring countries to the country that we are talking about. And now at this point in the pandemic as well, vaccination rates play into all of this. So it's very hard to say exactly what has caused the UK government to keep South Africa on the red list at this point, but it may be a combination of some of those factors. Turkey, you mentioned, is coming off the red list. That will see a lot of UK travellers heading there in the coming weeks and months. But Turkey's caseload has actually been rising since the end of August, whereas South Africa's has been falling. We have known at various points during South Africa's period on the red list that the presence of the beta variant in the country has been a concern for UK officials. That may well still be the case.
Yeah, we know, of course, though, that the beta variant has been actually obliterated by the Delta variant. So, as you say, the reasons are not necessarily clear. And you make such a good point about if you compare Turkey's infections compared to ours, they are way ahead of us and rising.
Yeah, and so then you start to look at other factors and try and work out what's going on here. Turkey does have a much higher vaccination rate than South Africa, but then you look at the fact that Kenya has come off the red list today, and its vaccination rate is much lower than South Africa's. And as I say, we've seen South African cases falling quite rapidly, while Turkey's have actually been rising. So that will lead to anger in the travel industry, but also among individuals, tourists who want to make that trip to and from South Africa. And the government is going to be pressed for some more clarity on exactly why South Africa remains on the red list. The other thing that's worth saying about that today is that we were actually expecting the government to take dozens of countries potentially off the red list, and only 8 came off. We also know that the announcement was rather later today than we expected. It may well be that there's been some disagreement in government and in scientific circles that advise the government about exactly how loose the UK should be with removing countries from the red list at this point.
Yeah, I think last time I counted there were over 80 countries on the red list, so I presume it's now sort of 75 or so. We know that Naledi Pandor, our foreign relations ministers, held talks with the UK counterparts, pushing to get us off the red list. It's having such an impact on a number of our sectors. We also know that the South African business leadership community has been doing everything they can to lobby as well. How close do you think this might be, Olly, to really causing problems in our diplomatic relations now?
I think we're heading in that direction. There's also pressure coming from inside Westminster on the government here. Ben Bradshaw MP is just one of those parliamentarians who has been himself lobbying the government to take South Africa off the red list because he says it's unfair that it's on it. It is, I think, an issue that is starting to snowball, especially as we head towards what's the UK's winter holiday season, when so many people would normally be heading for South Africa for some winter sun. So I don't think this question is going to go away with all the pressure rising, the anger in the travel industry. It's becoming more of an issue that is being talked about in Westminster and London. So the government is going to face increasing pressure on this, and it may well feed through into worsening diplomatic ties between the two countries.
Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening, Olly Barratt, coming to us live from London. And just a reminder what the red list means. Certainly for people travelling from the UK to South Africa, they're free to come into South Africa. But it's when they return to the UK that they now still have to quarantine at their own expense in a hotel for 2 weeks. That's a lot of money. It'll put most people off travelling to this country for leisure purposes. So that